Okay, so are you ready to dive deep into some serious AI stuff?
I am definitely ready.
All right, cool. Because we are talking about KimiK 1.5 and let me tell you, this is not just like another algorithm. This is AI that learns. I mean, it really learns like you and me. We've got like a really dense technical report here, but don't worry, we're going to pull out all the cool stuff and we're going to try to figure out like what it all means.
Yeah, it's a fascinating shift in AI right now.
Yeah.
Moving beyond just crunching data to actually strategizing and learning from experience. So imagine like an AI assistant that not only understands your requests, but actually learns the best way to help you based on past interactions. That's like the potential that KimiK 1.5 unlocks.
Yeah, and that's what has me so excited about this is like we're teaching machines to think for themselves. So let's just start with the basics. What exactly is Kimi K1.5?
Well, KimiK 1.5 is what we call a multi-modal AI, and that means that it can process both text and images. Most AIs we hear about are text only. But Kimi is tackling a whole other level of complexity and scoring crazy high on these tests that are designed to measure complex reasoning, even matching or beating models from big names like OpenAI.
Wow, so it's like Kimi has eyes and D brains. The report says that a key part of Kimi's success is how it handles something called long context. What's the deal with that?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Think about how you solve a problem. You don't just jump to an answer right. You think it through step by step. And that's what we call a chain of thought, or COTI for short.
COTI got it. So Kimi uses COTI too.
Exactly. Kimi scales up this chain of thought, allowing for much more intricate and complex reasoning. And here's the kicker. The results actually get better with longer thought chains.
Hold on, so the more Kimi thinks, the smarter it gets. That's kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah, it really challenges this old way of thinking that just throwing more data at an AI is the answer. Kimi shows us the power of learning through experience, just like we do. But just like with humans, there's a potential downside to too much thinking.
You mean like overthinking? Oh, I can definitely relate to that.
Exactly. It's like writing a 5-page essay to answer what's 2 plus 2. Kimi's team is working on balancing this deep thinking with real-world efficiency.
Okay, that makes sense. You need the smarts, but you also need to get things done quickly. So how are they tackling that?
Well, they're working on something called long too short, which is essentially trying to distill the wisdom of that long thinking model into one that's super speedy. Imagine an AI that's both incredibly smart and incredibly fast. That's the goal.
Whoa, it's like squeezing all the knowledge of a library into like a pocket-sized device.
Yeah.
So what we're learning here is that it's not just the size of the AI, but how it learns that really matters.
Absolutely. They did this amazing experiment where they compared a small AI that uses this reinforcement learning, like Kimi, with a giant AI that uses traditional methods. And the small AI actually caught up in performance because it was a better learner, not just a data
I
sponge.
love that it's brains over brawn in the AI world. But hold on, the report also mentions Kimi doing something pretty wild with test cases.
Ah, yes. You're talking about how Kimi generates its own test cases for coding tasks. It's like a student designing their own exam.
Wait, seriously. So it's not just solving the problems, it's checking its own work. That's next level.
Yeah, it demonstrates a much deeper understanding, not just pattern recognition, but genuine problem solving.
Yeah.
Now, to train this digital whiz kid, they're incredibly selective with the data they use.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they don't just throw any data at Kimi. They carefully curate a mix of problems from different fields, STEM coding reasoning, even image text challenges. It's like a mental obstacle course for AI.
So they're basically putting Kimi through the ultimate AI bootcamp.
Precisely. And here's where it gets even cooler. They're even using Kimi itself to help generate some of its own training material, particularly for those coding tasks. It's like a self-learning loop.
Wow, so Kimi is almost like its own teacher.
Yeah.
That's wild. So we've covered what KimiK 1.5 is and how it learns in this incredibly unique way. But I'm dying to know more about the actual mechanics of how it learns through reinforcement learning.
Okay, let's dive into that next. Think of it like a continuous feedback loop, where the AI is constantly learning from its actions and getting rewarded for making progress. It's a fascinating process, and we'll break it down step by step in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've established that KimiK 1.5 uses reinforcement learning, or RL, to get smarter. But what does that actually look like? How do you reward an AI?
Well, you can think of it like a continuous feedback loop. The AI takes an action, and based on the outcome, it receives like a reward or a penalty. And this feedback helps the AI learn which actions are more likely to lead to those desired results.
So it's like giving Kimi a virtual high five when it nails a problem. But how do they decide what a good outcome is for something as complex as reasoning?
Well, it kind of depends on the type of problem. For
Mhm.
something straightforward like a coding challenge, it's pretty clear. Did the code work pass or fail? Easy to measure.
Right, that makes sense. But what about problems that are more open-ended, where there isn't one single right answer? How do you train an AI for that?
Yeah, that's where it gets more complex. For those types of problems, they actually train separate reward models. These are like specialized AI judges.
Mm.
And they evaluate Kimi's answers based on things like accuracy, completeness, and even creativity.
Whoa, so it's like having a panel of AI experts grading Kimi's work. That's pretty wild. But remember how we talked about Kimi learning from its wrong answers? How does that fit into all of this?
Right, so remember those long chains of thought, the KITTs that Kimi uses to solve problems? Well, those KITTs can sometimes have flaws in them, leading to incorrect answers.
Right, like a mental roadmap with a wrong turn somewhere.
Exactly. But instead of just throwing those flawed QTs away, Kimi actually analyzes them. It figures out where it went wrong and adjusts its strategy for next time. It's all about turning those mistakes into learning opportunities.
So it's like figuring out why you missed a question on a test and making sure you don't make the same mistake again. But with all this deep thinking, all those long QTs, doesn't that take a ton of time and processing power? How do they keep Kimi from getting bogged down in these endless chains of thought?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's all about balance. They've introduced something called a length penalty during training. This basically discourages Kimi from generating overly long responses, even if they're technically correct. Think of it like learning to be concise and getting to the point, just like a good writer.
So it's not just about being smart, it's about thinking efficiently. Makes sense. But Kimi isn't just solving math equations, it's also handling images, text code. How do they train it to be so versatile?
It all goes back to that carefully curated training data we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
They expose Kimi to a huge variety of problems, from STEM challenges to complex reasoning tasks to even interpreting images. It's like a mental gym for AI with different exercises for different skills.
I like that in AI boot camp. So they're not just training Kimi to be a one-trick pony, it's learning to be a versatile problem solver.
Exactly. And they're constantly adjusting the difficulty and the types of problems they throw at it, making sure it's constantly challenged and learning new things. They even have techniques like curriculum sampling, where they start with easier problems and gradually ramp up the difficulty.
So it's like starting with the bunny slopes before tackling the black diamond runs.
You got it. And they also use prioritized sampling, which focuses on the areas where Kimi is struggling the most. It's like a personalized training program, always adapting to Kimi's strengths and weaknesses.
That's so cool. This whole project is mind-blowing. It's like we're watching the birth of a new kind of intelligence. But I can't help but wonder with all this power, how do we make sure that KimiK 1.5 is used for good?
That's a question that deserves a lot of attention. It's important to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to guide its development and ensure it's used responsibly.
Okay, good point. Now remember that long too short approach we touched on earlier? It sounds like they're trying to take all that knowledge from Kimi's deep thinking and make it even more practical.
Exactly. It's like taking all the wisdom and experience of a seasoned expert and condensing it into a form that anyone can learn from quickly.
That's a great analogy. So are they actually seeing results with this long too short approach?
Yeah, the results are very promising. They've shown that these long too short models can solve complex reasoning tasks in a fraction of the time, and this means faster processing and lower computational costs, which opens up a whole world of possibilities for practical applications.
That's game-changing. It's like having a supercomputer in your pocket.
Okay, so we've covered how Kimi learns how it handles all these different types of problems and how they're making it both smarter and faster. But I gotta admit, the sheer scale of this whole project is blowing my mind. Yeah, you and me both. The infrastructure behind KimiK 1.5 is incredible. Massive computational resources, sophisticated training systems, and a brilliant team of minds working together. It's a technological marvel.
It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But how do they actually train something this massive and complex? We're talking about an AI that's juggling images text code. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, they've had to come up with some seriously innovative techniques. For example, they use something called partial rollouts to break down those long chains of thought into smaller, more manageable chunks.
So it's like breaking a marathon into shorter sprints.
Exactly. This allows them to train Kimi on those incredibly long and complex reasoning tasks without overloading the system. They've also created a hybrid system that can seamlessly switch between training and actually using the AI, making the most of their computational resources.
So it's not just about brute force computing power. They're being really smart and efficient with how they use their resources. That's impressive.
Absolutely. And it highlights a crucial point. The future of AI isn't just about bigger models and more data. It's about smarter training techniques and more efficient infrastructure.
It's like having a powerful engine, but also a skilled driver who knows how to get the most out of it.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technology, but what about the human element? What role do WBE play in all of this as AI gets more powerful? Where do humans fit in?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one we need to be discussing constantly as AI keeps evolving. But here's the thing, AI is ultimately a reflection of us. We create it, we shape it, and we decide how it's used.
So it's not about humans versus AI, it's about humans, AI working together.
Exactly. It's about finding that synergy, that sweet spot where humans and AI can complement each other and achieve amazing things together. And that's where the real challenge and the real opportunity lies.
It's easy to get lost in all the technical stuff with AI, all the algorithms and processing power. But we got to remember that AI is a tool.
Right. It is a tool that can be used in many ways, both good and potentially, negative.
Exactly. So how do we make sure we're using this incredibly powerful tool responsibly? It feels like we're on the verge of a whole new era. And honestly, it's a little bit daunting.
Yeah, I get that feeling. I mean, we are talking about AI that can learn and solve problems in ways we never thought possible, but we humans are still in control.
Okay, good. That's reassuring.
Right.
But how do we stay in control when AI is becoming so sophisticated? The report mentions something called reward hacking, where AI can figure out how to get the right answer without actually understanding the problem. What other challenges do we need to think about?
Well, one big one is over-reliance. As AI systems get better at solving these complex problems, we might become too dependent on them. What happens to our own critical thinking skills if we're always just outsourcing the tough stuff to AI?
Yeah, that's a scary thought. Our brains turning to mush because we're letting the AI do all the thinking. So how do we prevent that?
Well, I think education is key. We need to be teaching future generations how to think critically, how to question assumptions, how to be creative problem solvers. These skills will be even more valuable in an AI-driven world.
So it's not about replacing human intelligence, but about making it stronger with AI, finding that balance where humans and AI can work together to achieve amazing things.
Absolutely. And to do that effectively, we need to understand both the strengths and the weaknesses of AI. For example, we need to be aware of potential biases that can creep into these systems.
Right, because AI is created by humans, and humans aren't perfect. So how do we make sure that AI is used ethically, for the benefit of everyone?
That's a complex issue with no easy answers. We need open and honest discussions about the ethical implications of AI, involving scientists, policymakers, and everyday citizens. It's a conversation that needs to keep happening as AI keeps evolving.
This deep dive into KimiK 1.5 has been a real eye-opener. I mean, we're seeing AI that doesn't just process data. It actually learns strategies and adapts almost like a human brain. It's incredible, but it also makes you think long and hard about the future.
Yeah, I agree. What we've learned about KimiK 1.5 is just a glimpse into what's possible with AI. Potential benefits are enormous, but so are the potential risks.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think the takeaway is that AI is evolving rapidly,
Yeah.
and it's going to have a profound impact on our world. We need to be informed, engaged, and proactive in shaping how AI is developed and used.
It's not just about building smarter AI, it's about building a better future with AI. And that's a responsibility we all share.
Well said, the future's in our hands.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of KimiK 1.5 and the future of AI. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.